Okay, let's call this meeting back to order. There's no rise in report. Consent agenda.
Question, just the correspondence of information, the letter from Just Do It Sports. I think we're gonna look at their application for funding at the regular board meeting at the end of the month. And I was hoping that this letter could go into that correspondence package. Because it's kind of nice to see what they did before and what we're gonna be funding. Yeah, so can that just be, could that Just Do It Sports 2022 final report item 5.241 be added to correspondence for information on the board agenda package? Is that correct?
Perhaps we'll remove it and then you can ask for a motion that it be referred to the board.
Okay,
Does that work? for you?
I'd like to ask to have it removed and have it instead on correspondence for information on the March board report.
Okay,
Is that only one?
First, we're just gonna remove it and then we're gonna add it as
so motion to remove.
just as part of our approval.
Okay, move to second and call the question. All in favor, opposed, motion carried. And now we're going to,
We'll consider it as part of correspondence for action.
okay,
Okay, thank you very much.
So that's 9.11. Yes.
Yes.
Very nice golf course.
so we need to have that moved and seconded that it's.
No, that is part of that.
Okay,
Yeah, sorry. So business arising.
yes, business arising, and there's none.
And so,
And now we do 7.7, which is,
so I'm gonna let Mr. Chalmers
yes.
in and
Yeah.
Chalmers. Where's Mr. Chalmers? Oh, there we are.
Hello, Mr. Chalmers. Can you hear us?
That was James.
Yes.
Okay.
You're there?
Hello, yep.
Okay, thank you. We've just got a staff presentation on this issue. And then you'll have, maybe 3 or 4 minutes to respond. We've got
Okay.
a lot here, so we'll move along. But anyways, are you guys ready to make your presentation?
So the request for decision is for a notice on title for the property 5515 Lakeview Road. This arose from a stop work order. So they started construction without a permit. We posted a stop work order. They then applied for a permit for a single family dwelling with no plumbing. That was granted. Then we had to post another stop work as they went ahead with work past where they had received inspections. And then as construction still exists, we asked that a notice on title be placed.
Have you got anything to add?
Other than the permit after extended was expired, and after numerous attempts of working with the homeowners to reapply for a permit, communication installed, we hadn't received a full application and the permit was considered closed and expired.
Yeah, let's hear Mr. Chalmers, go ahead. I think you're muted.
Mute. There we go. You guys hear me again?
Yeah, good stuff.
I'd like to start with an intro. As you all know, Gun Lake is quite a remote location. We had some bad advice from our realtor at the start not to get a permit because he said you didn't need one at the lake. That was obviously wrong. Immediately after we received the original stop work order, we submitted the engineering and full building plans. From that point in the summer of 2016, we waited until April of 2017 to receive the permit. In that time, we have put the roof on the building so it would not be damaged over the winter up at Gun Lake. Our first inspection was requested as a framing insulation inspection. The inspector who came up was Craig Cosman at that time. He had come up and the head building inspector, Norman Prong, I believe his name was, had only given him an inspection for foundations. At this time, we had already issued the structural CB was issued on June 1st or prior to June 1st, 2017 for the permit number 11028 by the engineer. And after that, Norman had asked that we had the engineer submit a field review, which was then submitted on September 2017. And when you guys sent up your building inspector once again on June 2nd, or sorry, not June 2nd, on July 5th, 2018, he did not put a stop work order on our building. He's put a notice of request for information. So that is wrong on your side. The request for information was then resubmitted in the field review from the engineer, Carlos Chu at Chu Hittman and Associates Engineering. And that was submitted on September 18th, 2018. All the pictures of the build, the full field review from the engineer stating that it was built to code compliance. And then from that point, I thought things were going well. We had the pandemic set in, and we had, at that point was the building was finished, and we had waited for, we had been contacted by Jay on the date, sorry, I'm just going through my paperwork here. Jay contacted us in the June of 2021 and gave me a list of what he would like us to follow up to finish our permit. And at that point, it was foundations, damp proofing, perimeter drains, poly under slabs, insulation, vapor barrier, and ventilation. We needed a final plumbing inspection and a final building inspection. This dwelling has had full engineering. It has full engineering sign off on our septic. It has full electrical inspection, final sign off. It was the combination of changing building inspectors and I believe the pandemic that put us out. And also in the year that Jay was trying to help us finish up this, we were still in the middle of the pandemic and we were not going up to the lake after October. That was it. It's not an accessible place. Our driveway is a ½ kilometer long. It is not plowed. It just was not viable. And that I contacted him again immediately in the spring of 2022 to try and get this finished. And he notified me that our permit was now expired and we could do nothing. What I am requesting from you guys is you hold off on this, make a motion to allow us to finish this building permit because it is very close to being done. And then you'll have a building fully permitted on the lake, occupancy, and done.
Okay, thank you. So I guess Jay, or whoever, is this a feasible thing to do? Is if this gentleman if he addresses all your concerns, is this building is it built to standard or to code so that he could actually get a final inspection on this building as it stands, if everything's completed?
Director Mack, as it stands, we haven't conducted any inspections in this building, provided the one site visit performed by Craig Cosman. All right, I just lost it. So to answer your question, I have no idea. We haven't been able to conduct a site, any required inspections. Craig Cosman left a note on July 5th, 2018, saying no required inspections have been approved. So to answer your question, I'm not sure. If we were in a similar circumstance with an active building permit, with a building at the stage that it's in that needs to go backwards in required inspections, we would require the homeowners to be opening up walls, both on the inside and outside, to view the construction. So feasible, yes. Possible, yes, but at the expense of the homeowner.
But the permit itself has expired.
The permit itself has expired.
Yeah, so, but can a new permit be issued?
Absolutely, with a new building permit application, yes.
Okay,
So when did the permit expire? Looks like they applied for 2017 or 2018.
Permit expiry was April 19th, 2019, and then it would have received a renewal, so it would have expired in April 2020. And then it sounds like they were trying their best to get it finished, but it officially expired in 2021.
so Mr. Chalmers, if we were to have you open a new building permit and do everything that's necessary to get that inspected and finalized to the satisfaction of the building inspector, you would be agreeable to that?
Yes, I would. I would like to try and do it on the 2018 building code, but I don't believe that might be possible with you guys at this moment. That is why I was trying to get through that. I'd had all the engineering done, everything was properly done and signed off by engineers. Although it was not inspected by the building inspectors, I was able to get engineers to the site on time and to do all the inspections.
What are we saying now? This building then has to meet today's building code?
We're in the 2018 BC building code right now, yeah.
So his building could meet the code we're in right now.
Could, yes, very well.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
I just had a couple of questions here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because Mr. Charles referred to seasonal, the ability to work over the winter and so on. Do we make any kind of allowance when we say, okay, something that lasts for 1 year? If you can't access the place for 5 months or so, do we make any allowance for that?
There's provisions in the building bylaw for adverse weather, material unavailability, strikes, acts of God, where in essence, if you haven't called for an inspection within a window of 6 months, and one of these issues is the cause of that delay, then we waive the provision in the building bylaw to cancel the building permit as incomplete. So when it comes to adverse weather and things like that, we do, like, there's that 6 month window that we afford people to not call for inspections. However, we don't stop inspections throughout the year in areas A and B. I'm up there 12 months a year conducting building inspections for the people who do continue construction on Gun Lake and the neighborhood. So,
May I add to that for a second, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, during the pandemic, there were signs posted and requests for no one to visit up to area A for almost a year and we are in Squamish in Whistler. So how is the provision for that?
Jay?
were there signs saying to stay out of
Yeah,
area?
just saying that because of the pandemic, people were being told not to travel all over the place, I guess. So I'm sure that there was extenuating circumstances because of the pandemic, with trades and all that kind of stuff. So that's something that we have to think about. But go ahead, Sal.
So, Mr. Chalmers, when was the last communication you had with SLRD staff? And you also stated that you sent in the required documents. Is that correct?
Yes, we had sent in the required documents through 2017 and 2018. And when I had talked with Jay in late spring of 2021, he wanted revised as-built sealed structural drawings CB, meaning you guys had not received our drawings in CB in 2018. And I have documentation from my engineer that he had sent it and it was received by the SLRD building department staff.
I'd like to make a motion for option 3.
What is?
Option,
Sorry,
what
where?
page are you on, Sal?
3 of the report.
Oh, response options, yeah, okay.
I'll certainly second that. So the land title office to allow the property owner more time to complete the building permit process. That's what you're looking for,
Yeah.
Director Demare?
To file a new permit for a new permit. So basically, well, we could go with option 1 with a change on it. Because to me, if you're willing to submit a new permit, that's what I'd like to see. So maybe I'll make a motion to that. That the property owner apply for a new permit.
That this be deferred to allow time for the property owner to apply for
Apply
a
for a
building
new
permit
permit. Yes.
So that's option 3,
with a bit of this.
isn't it?
No, it says to complete the building permit process. So I want to change it.
More time to complete it, so
To apply for a new permit.
To apply for a new permit. And there's 2 years after that, we're correct? To complete it, 3 years?
For a new building permit, yeah, the building period is 3 years. So if we choose option 1, then section 57 notice on title is registered against the property and the property owners are free to apply for a new building permit at their leisure to complete the building permit process.
I would not like to see the title on the property.
So you're moving the first part of option 3 there?
Yeah, and we could give a specific time that the permit has to be in, correct?
We could, and then staff would bring this back for another decision to the board in a year if we haven't received a building permit application.
Okay, that's what I'd like to see.
But as it stands right now, the building permit as we have is expired and considered closed as incomplete, so.
Okay,
So
so,
let's move to second.
yeah, it's moved and seconded.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, this has been going since 2016. We could argue that it's the fault all lies with the property owner. But we could also suggest that maybe there are some circumstances in there with changes in our personnel and that maybe we're not blameless in this process. So the question I have is regarding the building code. Now, if this building was constructed to 2018 code and has been has engineering sign-offs and so on and so forth, and with a new building permit, is that person then required to change a lot of things in that property?
This building permit, as it is, was issued under the 2012 BC Building Code, as I understand,
2012.
given the dates. We're now in the 2018 BC Building Code cycle. The differences and changes in the building code from the 2012 BC Building Code cycle to the 2018 BC Building Code cycle are negligible. So there's a very, very good chance that had the construction been monitored by SLRD building officials and inspections had been passed, that those requirements would not have changed from the 2012 code to the 2018 BC Building Code, given the scope of the building project, what the building is as it exists, et cetera. Now, because inspections weren't conducted and we haven't approved any of the construction, so to speak, I can't, it's too difficult for me to say based on what we have.
The responsibility lies entirely with the person that's applied for the permit to request those inspections,
Yes.
is it? Okay.
And that's according to both the SRD's building bylaw and the
Yeah.
Building Act of British Columbia.
Fair enough. So I'll support this motion, and maybe I could ask that you would have a conversation with Mr. Chalmers to make sure he really understands everything. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so it's moved and seconded. And I'll call a question. All in favor, opposed, motion carried. Mr. Chalmers, I'll just get this motion here read to you so you know exactly what just transpired.
That the staff report be that, sorry. That staff will defer filing the sections 57 community charter notice in the land title office to allow the property owner more time to apply for a new building permit, and that staff bring this back in a year if the permit application has not been received.
So, Mr. Chalmers, the only thing I would suggest is you do this as quickly as possible. And good luck to everything else, and hope your building gets finished and meets all the requirements.
Thank you for your time and for deferring this for me so we can resubmit and get this finished.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, you guys.
Do we do anything about the missing engineer report?
No, let him apply for a new permit.
Okay. Seven point.
So now we're going to 7.1.
Okay, now. Okay, staff reports and other business, CAO verbal update.
Thank you, Chair. Just one item. I know the board or the committee will be aware of the BC Communities Fund that was announced. Staff will be bringing a report to the board meeting in a couple of weeks. On that fund, we still haven't received official formal notice of that fund and any criteria. What we're aware of is what's public, and that's that the SLRD allocation is 1.525 million. The funding formula was a combination of population-based and population growth between 2016 and 2021. And in looking at how that's described in the website, it suggested that was done to the advantage of smaller population centers, like electoral areas. And as I said, we'll be bringing a report to the board on this in a couple of weeks to start the conversation about criteria for allocating that funding and focus of that funding and those types of things. But just a quick update, we still don't have the official notification, but just share that.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Tony.
Question on that. We've had a conversation about that fund. We have some ideas or an idea of what we want to do with it. I would not like to see staff spend hours coming up with a plan that is totally opposite to what we want to do. So I'm wondering, how do we communicate with staff what our ideas are?
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm confident that the report we bring forward will enable the board to have a good, fruitful discussion. I think we're not going to be overly prescriptive in presenting this to the board. I think we'll structure that report in a way that will allow the board to have a good, free conversation on that.
Thank you.
I guess my only question is, how involved should the board be in saying how that money, the regional district money, is used, divided up, whatever. We've talked, you know what my thought on this is. Because I guess the way I look at this, and this is just something that is rubbing me the wrong way more and more all the time, is we are getting very little say in the electoral areas compared to the municipal areas, because we are obviously outvoted in this program, right? Now, all the money that these folks, all the different Squamish, Whistler, Pemberton, and Lillooet received, that's their money to use however they see fit. And I believe that the 1.525 SLRD money should be split, and I'm going to say evenly, amongst the 4 electoral areas, put in a line item, and then it'll be determined by the needs of that area, how that money is spent. It should not be the municipal directors telling us, the electoral areas, how we need to spend that money in our areas, so to speak. We do not tell them how to spend their money in their areas. So just my take on the thing. Thank you.
And to follow up on that, if that somebody wants to do a regional initiative, then the board should be able to convince the electoral areas to put some money into it, and they should be showing how much money they are putting into it, municipalities. If we're doing a regional initiative, the money, it shouldn't be funded just from that SLRD money. It should be funded from all of the money that's available within the SLRD.
If I could, yeah, through the chair. So when we bring forward the report, we'll facilitate that conversation, and we're not prescribing any approach. That those are conversations for the board to have and decisions for the board to make, and we'll make sure that we come forward with enough information for the board to have a good conversation in those items.
Thank you.
Chair, so will that report include the monies that are coming to the municipalities?
No, we're talking specifically about the allocation to the regional district.
Thank you.
Which is good news.
Well, it is good news.
Yeah.
And we need the money. There's no question about that. There's sewers and water and drainage and all kinds of stuff that needs fixing. And I don't want to be fixing potholes in Squamish.
I just have a question for CEO Dalton. I'm just curious, the staff reached out to the provincial government on what it can be used for in the in a regional district.
No, the only guidance that has been given, or the only information that's been shared, is via the provincial government communication, which is that the intent for its use is to be broad. And so we'll get formal notification from the province, and I anticipate they'll describe what that looks like, and that'll inform the options or choices that the board will have, and we'll bring that forward in the report.
I guess I'm going to throw out another. See, so with that regional district money being regional district, I think the board should say it's up to the electoral area directors to make the decision on how they split that money up or how they spend that money in the electoral areas. Because like I go back to, all these folks are not going to come and ask for our blessing on how they're going to spend the money they've received. So if you throw 7 more people into the mix here, deciding on how we are going to be allowed to spend the money given to the regional district, that's going to be an interesting conversation. I just know it is. So anyways, something for you to think about in your deliberations with staff.
Yeah, Chair, if I could, I would simply say that we're going to bring this forward and allow the board to have that conversation, and that's the board's role. Our job will be to bring the program forward with as much information as we can get, and ask the board for direction. And yeah, and we'll then get to work on how best to move this money forward based on that direction.
Is that in an open meeting or a closed meeting?
Open.
Good.
It should be.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other,
No, thank you.
that's your report? Okay, cool. Thank you. Motion to receive. Moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you. Information report, March 2023 select funds. Suzanne. Hello, Suzanne. Good morning. Happy
morning.
International Women's Day.
Thank you.
If I was in charge, I would have told you to take the day off, but you're too busy. Sorry.
So what are we on right now?
We're on 7 information report, March 2023 select funds.
Okay. So we don't prepare presentations for these. If there's any questions, I'm available to answer.
Yeah, Suzanne, just one question about how the accounting is managed. I had a motion to allocate, what was it? Oh, where's it gone now? Oh, no.
She did it,
Sorry,
right?
sorry. I think it's, I think I've answered my, oh, no, I haven't. Okay. The scholarship fund to the House Sound Secondary School, for example. So this year it's $4,000. And but then there's a line in here that says, RAD Secondary School Scholarship 24 to 26 inclusive 12,000. And that's kind of taken off what's available this year. But that $4,000 a year, there's only 4,000 coming out this year. And the 12,000 is deferred for 3 consecutive years. But it seems to me that I'm not able to spend that money this year. If I'm reading that properly.
So yeah, $4,000 was moved and paid for 2023.
Right.
And then the remaining resolution is shown as committed. And it will be paid out in the years 2024 to 2026. Is that different from what you're anticipating?
No, that's what I anticipate, but it doesn't
Okay.
prevent me from spending that money this year. Then I could, in theory, I could run down to a 0 balance at the end of 2023.
It
Even
does
though the-
come off of the total balance. So the 66,863, I believe it is your total.
Yeah.
That already has the 12,000 and any other committed funds removed. And we wouldn't want to go below that. Once you've committed it, it remains as committed.
Yeah, I understand it's committed, but I'll get another allocation in 2024 and another one in 2020, 2025.
Optimistically.
Well, but if we don't get the money, then I can just go there and not get the scholarship. But okay, so if it comes to it, if I really need that money for something else, I'm going to have to bring a motion to cancel that commitment.
We could probably make an exception if you wanted to spend more than what that bottom funding amount is. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, I guess. There isn't any rule around that, but obviously if policies change, especially the BC Hydro PILT policy that funds this program, then that would become an issue. So it's just, yeah.
All I was trying to do was give the school some certainty. Okay, all right. If it gets to be a problem, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
I have no questions or comments on this one today. Thank
Very
you,
nice.
Chair.
How about you, Scott?
I do have one.
Okay.
I see the report was the 1st of March and the $13,000 that was paid out to the generator project is not on this. Was there just a delay in getting it in?
I believe it was posted in 2022 because it was for 2022 expenses. So we actually moved it into the 2022 select funds. So you don't see it listed here.
Okay. Could I get a copy of the 2022 final?
Sure
Mm.
can.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody's good then with,
Move, what do we have to move,
7.2?
receipt or something?
you're okay, Tony?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you move, what do we need, receipt?
Okay, so just a motion to receive,
Yeah, so
moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you. Now we go on to 7.3, which is gas tax community works fund.
Sorry about that. This
Anything there, information?
I'm good with both the bill and the community gas tax.
Yep.
No questions.
Are you okay here, Vivian?
I am.
Tony?
I just want to make sure I understand this as well. The Area D Community Amenity Fund balance forecast to the that was the end of 2022. So I've got $64,000 available that's not committed to anything. Is that, am I reading that properly?
Is that in your select funds?
No, amenity funds.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. Didn't realize I had that much.
Okay, so everybody's good with this item then? Okay, moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Now 7.4.
Budgets.
Okay, so I'll share my screen and we'll go through
And then,
the budgets for EAD. And we've already reviewed the non-market changes and the assessments. I just keep it on there for public knowledge. So for the requisition review, the total EAD services now show a 27.5% increase over 2022, mainly due to the changes with emergency planning, and we'll get into that shortly. I will go through, so for salaries and benefits, we did add the full-time for the previously part-time position of emergency management technician into 2023. And that was a resolution of the board. And we also added in the 1,000 per full-time equivalent for the health and wellness benefit as per board resolution. So looking at this separate budget, civic addressing hasn't changed. Building inspections, I did highlight the changes within the spreadsheet, and the new surplus carry forward is $271,055, mainly due to all the building permit revenue received over budget for 2022. There was a request to have $6,000 additional training budget for the building inspectors' professional development courses, and that's been added. There's also additional bank charges into the budget for 2023 as we are looking at adding credit card processing through their online building permit software. And There's also a couple highlights, just moving some software expense from 2022 to 2023 as it was prepaid in 2022. And we're required to just move it to the actual year that it's should be expensed. And I'll just go down to that budget and pause there for any questions. So the new requisition is 55% below 2022's requisition. Okay, so the next,
Yeah, you have to turn the middle light and then you don't get the glare. That's better.
Still good.
So which page of your report are you on here?
so just finished the building inspection changes. Any questions on that budget?
No, none for me.
No,
We got it.
Okay,
I'm
And
good.
so the elections UBCM had just minor changes. It includes, the UBCM convention costs and the billing to school districts for the 2022 elections expenses. And any changes were just the offset was the transfer to elections reserve, which is now $19,000 in 2023. And the 5-year plan looks good for the 2026 elections to ensure there's enough funding. Did anybody want to discuss the elections UBCM budget or changes?
no, I'm good. Everybody
good.
else?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, and the emergency planning budget. So this is the one that changed the most. The current deficit carrying forward is 25,520. And these time allocation revenues were updated based on estimates for 2022 and potential, estimates for 2023 as well. And this time allocation revenue is for the emergency planning staff working on other services. So that would be the fire protection services, the 911 services, and any general government work. There is some carry forward projects in 2023, and there's a listing of all the projects as a separate attachment with budget sheets as well. And these are all funded by grants or other funding that doesn't hit the bottom line. Additional legal expense was requested to be added to the budget for 2023, just as a contingency, and that was $20,000. So that's been added, and also the emergency reserve is currently at 65,000. The minimum guidelines state 2 months of regular operating expenses, which constantly shifts, but roughly is calculated at 74,000. So it's just about $9,000 under. And I'll just go to this budget because it's the one that's been changing the most. And so it does show 100% increase over 2022 for requisition. The time allocation revenue has been updated, like I mentioned, and this is the new estimate for time allocation revenue for 2023. The new full-time technician has been updated into 2023's salaries, benefits, and employer health tax. So the health and wellness benefit has been updated to the new 1,000 per full-time equivalent, as well as the $20,000 for legal has been added. And any questions on this emergency planning budget?
None for me. Anybody else?
No.
No.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. And the last service would be the regional park service, which will be ending this year. And there was just a slight adjustment to the figures, and the new negative requisition would be 6,253 if we wanted to send back these funds in 2023. We could delay this and just carry forward these funds for another year at the EAD's recommendation. I can change the budget to allow that. Currently, the budget shows a negative requisition for these remaining funds.
Would prefer that to stay.
Yeah. Do you want to just say that a little louder, Tony? So I don't know if Suzanne heard you.
Oh, I prefer us to keep that as a negative requisition.
Okay.
I don't know what.
Yeah, I'm in agreement.
Do you need a motion or?
No, no.
Oh, no, okay.
Great, thanks. And that's pretty much all for the EAD budgets, unless there's any other questions.
Just,
Yeah.
if I could,
Yeah.
thanks, Director Mack. Suzanne, I was just looking for the money that was set aside for the Seton Anderson Lake Park that, you know, was set aside by Director Macri so long ago. And I know we've been using it for some of the staff time and so forth. That'll be showing up in my new Area B Park service area in the future.
That's
Correct.
correct. Yes, yes.
Thank you.
So,
Go ahead.
so looking at it's actually page 444 of the report. Total change with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tax services is 27.5%, correct?
Sorry, which page are you referring to?
It's 4 of 44 or page 36 of the whole agenda package.
Okay. So the
total change is plus 27.5% for all these services.
that's right. The taxation shifts and the taxation, you know, market and non-market change does reduce that percentage increase when you're looking at just the tax rates. But yeah, just the dollar value of the increase over 2022 is 27.5% of an increase.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you good, everybody?
Yep.
Thank you very much, Suzanne.
Suzanne,
Thank
thanks for your patience and your sort of availability to answer questions and so on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
No problem.
Suzanne, looking at the emergency planning section, it was good to see that that sheet on all the revenue and the special projects all in one.
And did you want to recommend these budgets for approval to the board?
So
Yes.
moved. I would like to
Seconded.
recommend these amendments for the board.
It moved and seconded that they move forward to the board for approval. Okay.
Yes.
I'll call the question.
Anyone opposed?
So moved and seconded, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you. Now we go into 7.5. Request for decision, building bylaw number 1611-2020, amendment bylaw number 1807-2023. And welcome you guys. What are you going to tell us?
All right. Director Mack staff have brought forward this report to amend the building bylaw to allow for the inclusion of language for our new electronic building permitting system. We're extremely proud of the hard work that our department's done in bringing this forward, and this is one of the last steps before implementation in May of this year. So most of the changes proposed are language for the allowance of accepting electronic information and forms and various other tidying up of some spelling mistakes, etc., in the building bylaw.
Very good. Any questions?
Yeah, so in the budget just now, there was a comment about credit card charges that we're gonna, so when somebody files something electronically, they can then pay their fees that electronically as well?
Absolutely.
And so so we've got credit cards set up. Do we have like electronic transfer, e-transfers?
We do currently, however, it's we're trying to streamline the acceptance of electronic payments and e-transfers, as well as being able to accept credit cards. The SRD building department hasn't had the infrastructure in place to accept credit cards for any of our fees, bylaw fees, building permit application fees, or building permit fees until we bring this in.
That we can accept e-transfers?
We can, yes.
Because there's no fee involved in that, is there? So we prefer that, I suppose.
This was mostly customer service related, as we've found through unscientific polling.
Yeah.
9 applicants out of 10 who bring forth building permit application try to pay with a credit card.
And just another question, once this is all in place, I can see how it really benefits people that are not close to the office. They can file from wherever they are in the regional district. Will it have any effect on the amount of time it takes us to process applications?
It should shorten that amount of time, given that the electronic tools that we've purchased and are allocated through our new funding for the software that we'll be using has made it much easier for both the building and planning departments to process building permit applications.
Right.
So yeah, we're going to cut down on
So
the amount of time.
really positive things there then.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent, thank you.
So,
Very positive. I remember when I was doing my last building permit, and the process was, they just seemed so antiquated. And we're moving forward, new technical age, awesome.
Vivian, anything?
I just thank you for the report, and I don't have any hard questions, just the Schedule A, this climactic and seismic data, which is fantastic. And is this, like, I'm looking for a date on this data.
May 20th, 2022.
There it is. It's extremely small.
So a version of this table exists in our building bylaw. This updated version for design purposes is live on the SLRD's website right now. As this climactic design data is part of the building bylaw, we're asking that the new data that we've collected from Natural Resource Canada and Environment Canada be adopted into the building bylaw.
Which makes very good sense. All right, thanks. That's it from.
Tony.
No, I move that it be read a first, second, and third time.
Okay, that's option 1. Is that correct?
It's the first that, the recommendations.
It's recommended to the regional board.
Okay. So moved and seconded, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried.
Move that it be adopted.
Okay,
No,
It goes to the board.
just say that.
oh, so it goes to the board to be adopted?
Yes, like the whole, all three.
Oh, all
dots
3 dots
were
are together?
Carried together.
Okay, so we're,
But then why is that second one in there then, without adoption? Am I reading the wrong page?
Board will consider it option.
yeah,
Oh, I was looking at the recommendations at the top of the page, sorry.
no, very good. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we go to 7.6, request for decision OCP amended bylaw number 1776, 2023, electoral area B zoning bylaw amendments. Vivian.
Thank you, and maybe there's a presentation from staff, no? Just,
I can speak to the report. I can see it here.
You just want us to ask questions, so. You know, oh,
I've got it open, but I'm getting a blank screen for some reason. Try again. Strange, I'm not seeing it. Maybe if I go to 100%. Yeah, that would be good, thank you. Yeah, so this report has been, or this, sorry, bylaw amendment has been in process for about 5 years now. And it's sort of made its way partway through, been delayed, and it's now back again. There are some corresponding changes that are being proposed through a zoning amendment bylaw. The zoning amendment bylaw, of course, has to conform to the OCP. And this will align the two documents. And so in the report, you'll see a table with some explanation of the changes that have occurred over time and the rationale for those changes. Most of these changes have to do with things like general formatting, numbering, outdated references, things we sometimes refer to as housekeeping, mapping update, development permit areas, flood mapping, agricultural introduction. That's just really providing context to the agricultural wording in the OCP. Some more language around consistency with the zoning bylaw around agricultural land. So there's some terms to reference to amending the agritourism accommodation language. We don't any longer require applications for that kind of a use, so that will be cleaned up. It also refers to the allowance for second dwellings in the ALR, so that's being cleaned up in the text. There's also a reference to having some decision-making criteria for lands in the agriculture zone. These are already in areas C and D. These are just questions posed for the board to consider and staff to consider when considering rezonings in agricultural land. And then there's also reference to agricultural impact assessments, which currently there's not a lot of detail in the OCP, and we feel that there should be some criteria to guide the work of qualified professionals when they provide agricultural impact assessments. So that's sort of the summary of the changes that are being proposed. And the request is that this be given, the first reading be rescinded, and that it be bylaw be read again and given first reading as amended, and that this be referred to various referral bodies, the First Nations, District of Lillooet, provincial agencies and ministries, and to the Area B Agricultural Advisory Committee for comment on agricultural provisions only. And that is the recommendation.
On Appendix A, which is basically all the changes as written are to go into the OCP, correct?
That's right.
And they'll go into the particular areas where they need to be in the OCP.
Yes.
So it'll be included in the OCP. Has staff provided a draft of that yet? Or are you waiting for this to finally be approved before you actually put it into the OCP update? So I'm just going through the process.
So when this bylaw is adopted, it will be consolidated with the Area B OCP.
In other words, they'll be put into the sections that they all belong in.
Yes, we like to think of it as a recipe. So when you read the bylaw, it's like a recipe. It'll say insert this here, remove this here, and you just follow along.
Okay.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
Okay, I have a number of questions and comments, so maybe just going through it like the way it's presented here. The first, like right off the bat, let me start it. When it says we're going to be referring it to the appropriate First Nations, a while back, I sort of asked a question about these referrals to First Nations, and staff were going to work on that. It's extremely complicated in B, and I wonder if staff, well, first of all, is there a sense that this bylaw does not apply on reserve? Can I just?
We have no land use authority on federal lands.
Okay. So that sort of lightens the responsibility for the consultation with the First Nations if it's not applicable on the reserves, but still it's very much of interest. And so that we come right back to that, which First Nations are going to receive this as a referral.
We did have a conversation with somebody from the Statlium, and we will follow up with them as to who they would like this to go to and the various other First Nations.
And if, through the chair, if I could add, based on the input that came from the Area B Agricultural Advisory Committee around consultations with First Nations, Ms. Nadon has reached out and had that conversation. So that's a work in progress, but we're very aware of the complexity there, and we'll work through, as Kim said, the Statlium to make sure that we're doing it in a way that is as fulsome and effective as possible. And it's not, as you said, it's not simple, but Jeanette's had those initial conversations, and I think we're in a better place now than we were some months ago.
Okay.
And if you'd like to connect with Ms. Naden at some point to understand what that consultation and that work she's doing with them looks like, be happy to set that up.
And I did a couple of times, and it was a work in progress. And so I'm still looking forward to that. But it's an important consideration. And I don't think we could go wrong by relying on actually the Area B Agricultural Advisory Committee for some guidance and quality assurance there as well.
Well, with respect to First Nations and referrals, like the Area B AAC really deals with agricultural matters. So in terms of referrals to First Nations, that's sort of out of their purview, but we will refer to all adjacent and abutting First Nations in Area B.
Yeah, if I could add, I think we got this, and that was great input. But I'd be happy to connect with you, and I'm certain we can reassure you that any consultation that takes place there with First Nations communities will be guided by them. And so we've learned a fair bit just based on that input. So I think we've got it.
Okay. Thank you. And you know, this is sort of stumbling along, and there's lots of improvements along the way. I asked at the last meeting what the comments were from MOTI from 4 years ago, and I think it's been forgotten. I don't know if that answer's been.
Through the chair, at this point, the bylaw is going to get referred to MOTI again.
Just
Any
start fresh.
information, yeah, any information from 4 years ago is probably not relevant any longer.
Okay. Development permit areas. I'm really pleased about the wildfire and the riparian provisions being added as suggested. But that comprehensive development permit area, I think that whole discussion should just wait until we do an official community plan review in Area B.
Are you thinking about that one, Kim?
Well, I mean, this is an OCP amendment that we're in right now. So you're suggesting that we wait for another OCP amendment?
No, we're sort of working with a pretty outdated document. It's not, it's not grievously out of touch with, I mean, not that much has changed in there, but like, this is a 2008 document that you're working from, right?
Yeah, and that's the purpose of this bylaw, is to update it and make it more modern and make it more user-friendly and make it more accurate and make it reflect the latest agricultural policies and other regulations that have sort of changed over time.
And mostly the focus has been on agriculture. That's what we've been working on for the last, since I got on the board here. So we're coming into year 5 with the Area B Agricultural Advisory Committee, and we've come to some good places there and some good decisions, and those are reflected here. And I'm glad to see that, because that's good. Some of the other is way above and beyond what we need to do in terms of housekeeping and updates. I mean, I appreciate housekeeping is like, yes, we're going to change. If it used to be called the ministry of this and now it's the ministry of that, we're changing those things. Perfect, of course. And page numbers and formatting and that kind of stuff. Great. Okay, just going sort of continuing on. The flood mapping. So that's page 86 of the report. So I'm happy about adding in the information about Bear and Pete's Creek, Whitecap Creek, Spider Creek, and so forth. That's really important new information that should be in there. But I'm not sure that we want to lose the other flood mapping if we have it from previous, even if it's old. I think some of that information is better than none. And then also we've had debris flows on the Duffy and so forth that could be mentioned in this section.
I'm not certain that past information will be removed from the bylaw. This is really meant to add in additional information.
Okay, well, that's just an addition. Okay. Okay, good. Good. Okay, then when we get into the agriculture introduction, and I'm just looking at your table here. Replace with the following when we're talking, and it's the highlighted other agricultural activities. Are you with me? Okay. Ginseng and hop production, that's like 20-year-old news. We're not big on ginseng and hop production in Area B at this point in time. We have some organic farming happening, which is an important reference to include in here, including organic viticulture. And I think the references to the Okanagan Valley should be gone. Having just spent some time in Kelowna, I mean, that is not the way I'd like to see Area B, the monoculture of the vineyards there, taking up all the grasslands and losing all the biodiversity and so forth. I'm all in favor of some wine and cider and beer and all of that, but I don't think we need to celebrate what's going on in the Okanagan Valley in our official community plan.
I think it's just referring to climate similarities.
There's definitely some climate similarities.
But we can remove that.
And it says agritourism remains largely underdeveloped in Electoral Area B. I mean, that is true, but we do have Lillooet Agriculture and Food, and we do have a farmer's market, and we do have the hub, and we do have a lot of promotion of local food and some small infrastructure around that. So
Is that in area B or is that in the district of Lillooet?
both, it's sort of spanning, but you're right, the hub is in the district of Lillooet. But the produce that they're selling there as local comes from area B.
All your tourism too, wrapped around your sturgeon fishing in the river. I mean, that's a
Yep.
That's a
That's-
pretty big industry you've got going there.
It is.
Yeah.
And, you know, the vineyard, Fort Barons, of course, is in the district of Lillooet, but our organic winery at the end of Texas Creek is in area B. And, you know, that would be a logical end point for any kind of agritourism tour. And now we have the breweries also in Lillooet, but still important to area B. So I don't think.
So just so you know, Director Birch Jones, these changes, this is just a first reading. So these changes can be made after the referrals and after discussions with the AAC, like we can go through this and make these sorts of changes before second reading.
So am I just kind of wasting my time here going through this? Because
It's good to hear, but I think we'll probably hear it again when it goes to the AAC.
yeah, I'd rather send them a document that was a little like, you know, there's a couple of things here that really bothered me that I don't see why we have to inflict it on anybody else if we can fix it now.
Oh, I see.
Right? Like, for example, when we keep going, you know, again, references to the Sea to Sky Invasive Species Council, like we have Lillooet Regional Invasive Species Council, and we have, you know, the so on. So if you don't think we're gonna make any changes in this based on my input now, I'm not too happy with approving it to go forward.
Well, I mean, one thing that could happen is that this not go forward, and then you could send your list of proposed changes to staff and
For
we
sure.
could revise the bylaw prior to bringing it back again for first reading.
That would be totally fine and wonderful. And what I was hoping to do was maybe to work directly with staff on this like this, but not necessarily at a meeting.
Great idea.
I would be so happy to do that.
Yeah, okay, so the staff is Brenda. So I can put her in touch with you to go through the.
And we can take out things like references to the West Coast mountain character and things like that.
Yeah. So we could even send you a Word version of the document, and you could even go through and do some track changes on it to show us what you'd like to see moving.
I know how to do track changes.
Yeah.
I don't know how to fix them after they've been done, but that'll be your problem. I can only do the first step. Okay.
So
But
while you're scrolling along, Vivian,
yes,
Tony's been dying to ask a question.
No,
Oh, okay.
Vivian's asked.
oh, okay, no, but I mean, there's other things that I think might as well, when we go to page 1 of the report and it goes Seton Portage sub-area, and this is just a typo, page 57, and it goes from 838 to 243. And I thought, what? So yeah, lots of little things like that. And I'm just worried that we're adding a whole new layer of permitting. As well as, you know, what the Agricultural Land Commission says and what our building codes say and so forth. And then when we come up with requiring security in the form of an irrevocable letter of credit in the amount of 135% of the estimated cost, now that made my blood pressure jump to be held until the requirements of the permit have been fulfilled to the SOP. So yes, I have a lot
Sorry,
of,
which section are you referring to?
it's page 4, it's page 94 in our package. Did you find it in DPAs?
Are you talking, okay, TPS?
So it's page 4 in your report.
Yeah.
It is under F. 1, 2, 3rd paragraph.
You're actually looking at the bylaw or the staff report?
Well, now I'm just leading up to, right?
I'm lost.
In any case, I can't find it, but 135% security is typically what we would ask for in order to ensure site remediation.
So this is, yeah, so this DP must be approved by the SLRD, and I understand this is like a delegated authority to the planning department. Directed to the Director of Planning and Development.
Is it for the comprehensive DP?
Well, it's whatever you're referring to here in section F on page 4 of your report, page 94 of the package.
If we don't require securities, if somebody leaves a site sort of in disarray, then it can be on the SLRD to have to deal with it. There can be some liabilities, etc., which is why we take securities to ensure that everything is done as it's supposed to be.
Okay. And then we get into more. We start talking about development permit guidelines and making sure there's a positive contribution to the communities. I think you're talking about larger developments here in this section.
Yes, and there really aren't a lot.
I know.
So this is in the case that there are, then there will be some guidelines.
And that is something that where this may be premature and that we can certainly look at it when we're looking at the official community plan. But I don't know that we need to put it into the bylaw now. And I've already made the point about ginseng and hops and so forth, and that kind of stuff you're saying we can just talk about and change.
So are you
Yeah.
saying there's no more ginseng and hop production in area B?
No,
Or not at all?
no. I mean, there may be little bits of this and that in individual gardens, but there's not those fields like we saw before. That's literally 20 years old. And I know you guys are in Pemberton and Whistler and you're not in area B, but I am. Hemp, we thought was a big deal, and we have one massive production and we have a medical marijuana production, but it's not like filling up the fields like it was a couple of years ago, so. No.
Ginseng was like 10, 20 years ago.
It was a long time, and yeah, the markets changed just like they did for hops. And then the broad strokes, yeah. So when we're talking about zoning bylaws and development permit areas, and it says including but not limited to. No, those are too broad strokes. I think we need to be precise in what we're talking about and say what is included, but not say included but not limited to, because that just leaves it too wide open. And if somebody is looking at doing something, they don't have clear.
Yeah, but,
You like that wide
well,
open?
I'm just thinking, I don't see it as being wide open. What I do see it as is enabling staff some flexibility. If you have somebody looking at this bylaw and it says, well, it's limited to that, you know, I want to do something else. How do you deal with that? It's got to come back to change the bylaw, and whereas if you have some language in there that allows some flexibility, it doesn't say that just because a person wants to do it, they can do it.
Yeah. and
I don't
think-
know, I just.
Through the chair, we have to remember that this is an OCP that we're talking about. So these are broad guiding principles and policies for the area. They're not meant to be prescriptive in the way that a zoning bylaw is. The zoning bylaw sort of takes care of the nitty gritty and the regulations. This is really more overarching.
Yeah.
Tony, go ahead.
No, I want to support Vivian and what she's doing. I understand the commitment she has to all of this, and she hasn't said anything that I don't support. But looking at it from, you know, area D, which is a long way from area B, my suggestion about the agriculture, I read that and I thought, no, I don't know that much about area B, but I've just discovered you don't grow ginseng anymore. I didn't think they did. My suggestion for that whole paragraph about agriculture would be ask the agricultural committee to write the paragraph. And then, you know, you've got people that are right there doing it, and we get an accurate description. You know, I was quite surprised to see that ranching, haying and gardening are the primary activities, because I always think of wine when I think of you know, that area. But then I've forgotten that Fort Barons was within the district of Squamish, but district of Lillooet. I'm sure the district of Squamish would like to have it in there. That may be coming. That may be. So anyway, that would be my suggestion. Give it to Vivian to take to that committee and have them write that paragraph. What else did I have a question about? Oh yeah, there's a heck of a lot of information in here, and I found it mind-boggling to sort of be juggling from one thing to another. And I know it's going to be sent out for referral, so I'm assuming when it goes out for referral, it's going to be much simpler, much easier to redocument. But the question that I get sometimes, which I thought we should pay attention to when this goes out to sort of ordinary people, should I say, is what's an OCP? What is it?
Well,
No, just a minute. You know, what, like Kim, you just said it's an overarching sort of document, and that from that it provides some guidance to zoning. I think we need to make sure people understand that. We get so used to, you know, RGS, OCP, and all these letters. We don't stop to think sometimes. What does that mean to a person that is not sitting around this table? So that just a suggestion that when it goes out, when it's being discussed anywhere else, that we have that, just maybe a little paragraph just saying this is what an OCP is, this is what it leads to, and here's where the public can have some input. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to make a couple comments. One is that the OCP was in 2008, and I think it said that even in there it was approved in 2010, the old OCP. Very similar to what we're working with right now in Area A. So I am presuming that the next OCP update, where the public really has input into it, well, Area B is going to be next. Am I correct with that?
No, I don't believe so. I think it'll probably be parts of Area C we'll be looking at for OCP updates.
Okay, because that's when the community really gets engaged in the OCP updates. So looking at this is that this is just an amendment bylaw, and it looks like it started in 2018, and it was given first reading in 2018. And I don't know if you were the director at that time. No. So yeah, so looking at it, and it's been worked on ever since, you know, 2018, and now we're at 2013, looking at getting
2023 even.
sorry, 2023. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, and you know, looking at the schedule down lower, that where all those pieces will get inserted into it. And I like the idea of Director Burts Jones being able to work with staff on cleaning it up to you know, some changes that she's already mentioned, and I'm sure there's more before it actually gets brought back to first reading. So.
Carry on.
Thank you. I would love the opportunity to just work directly with staff on some of the wording and some of my questions and sort of provide some information and have that back and forth. That would be terrific. I'd also like to request that I actually get to see what is going to be presented for referral. Because is it going to be something that looks like what we're looking at in this package?
So
I haven't seen one for Area B, right? So.
So it sort of sounds like, you know, that you'd like to have some input on this bylaw before it goes, back to the, EAD and the board. So I would suggest that we look at option 3, other, which is send back to staff to work with the area director to, revise the wording prior to coming back for first reading. And then we would have the bylaw in a referral ready state.
I would like that very much.
Okay,
Did you just move that?
Yes.
move seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
I'd like to move, we go to lunch.
Oh, yeah.
I'll second that.
It smells like there's soup here.
I'd like to keep talking about the Area B one.
You can sit here and talk all day if you want.
Seriously, I'm just looking at the next item. It's going to take more than 5 minutes, I would think. So maybe we could break for lunch now.
7.8.
Yeah.
My
Yeah,
final
it's-
comment is I absolutely love the wildfire in the riparian sections.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did we interrupt you?
Okay.
Lunch, lunch,
are
lunch.
you okay if we take a recess right now? Thank you. All right, it is, we're gonna take a 1.5 hour recess, so whatever that adds up to.
Well, it's,
1 o'clock.
Yeah, it comes to 1
12:43.
o'clock. My half an hour goes to when that big hand is up on the 12th.
How about what, 10 to 1?
Ask Chief Van Doren, he'll tell you the clock was right.
Okay, we're ready to resume the meeting. So I'll call it back to order. And looking forward to the chief's presentation. I've already had a sneak preview. It's very, very good. So welcome.
Thank you, Chair. First, I just want to acknowledge that I have the privilege to live and work and reside on the traditional unceded territories of the Squamish-Lillooet and Statliam nations. Also, I wanted to acknowledge the great contribution of all the volunteer firefighters that we have throughout the region and thank them for their service.
Nice.
And state Happy International Women's Day. And so I'm here to chat with you folks about the Fire Services Review project that myself and the Protective Services team have put together. High-level summary is looking for ways to collaborate more effectively regionally, learn what is working well and areas that potentially require investment, and enhance the safety, manage risks and liabilities more effectively. And I do have a clicker here, if I can figure this out.
So,
It is
There we go.
on.
Point it.
There you go. Thanks, Gail. Point it, okay.
At my laptop.
Okay, perfect. So the Fire Services Review Project. So why do this now? Recent investment in the Protective Services team allows for capacity and focused effort. And that's why I'm here and I feel privileged to be here. Also, the regulatory and legislative environment has been changing. A couple examples of that are the recently released Office of the Fire Commissioner minimum training standards, as well as the Fire Services Act is changing to the Fire Safety Act. We can better understand our obligations as the authority having jurisdiction. Some areas I'd like to dive into that are relevant to the SLRD are the Motor Vehicle Act as well, Occupational Health and Safety Regulation, and the amendments to the Criminal Code as well. And lastly, it's an opportunity to create a baseline to serve as a platform for change, and essentially serve as an overview of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats and or risks. Next slide, please, Gail. Let's see here. Thank you. So the Fire Services Review Project, we have it divided into 7 streams of work, buckets of work, and each stream informs the other. And we compartmentalized the project into 6 months with the departments on this list to make it tenable and achievable within this year. And the results of this review will serve to inform and provide learnings for our partnerships with other associations and societies that aren't on this list. And next slide, please, Gail. So the first piece is really understanding and interpreting the legislation and regulation that governs and guides the fire service and fire service delivery. There's an interrelation between regulation standards and level of service, and we have a mixed model in the SLRD, so a bit of a multivariable analysis happening. And really the depth and complexity of this depends on the scope of service. And you can see at the bottom of the slide is kind of a quick overview of the types of and levels of service that can exist in the fire service. Next slide, please. And then the next piece is getting that 1,000-foot view of where the SLRD is today. Evaluating current bylaw and policy structures as well as funding models are kind of keys. And then next slide, please. Part 3, and this is a key, is determining what the obligations and accountabilities are of the SLRD and all groups contributing to fire service and fire service administration and delivery. And then part 4, next slide, is building the audit toolkit. And so the Office of the Fire Commissioner does have best practice in terms of fire department audit, inspection. And I'll be borrowing from that and tailoring it to the custom nature of our fire services throughout the SLRD. And I'm working with the Office of the Fire Commissioner to make some tweaks to their program too, so that at the end you can digest the results and have ranked recommendations automatically. So there's that piece, and then there's part 5, which is conducting the review. So this piece is the boots on the ground and meeting the folks, developing that relationship and that partnership, and opening the channels of communication to see where things are at. And really creating that baseline will serve as a platform for change so that we can ensure that we're trending in the direction that everybody sees fit, and that we're tracking our progress in our areas of investment. And then part 6 is really the close of the project. We're getting close to the close, which is putting all the pieces together. When it comes time for this piece, I'd be borrowing heavily from other subject matter experts in fire service delivery and fire service administration, and borrowing from other regional districts that have conducted similar work, chatting with other regional chiefs throughout the province, and putting the picture together for us. And so the executive summary would then also include a narrative report for each of the departments that we've conducted a review of. And really, part 7 is really the last piece, is the actual recommendations themselves, structured in immediate, short-term, and long-term recommendations. And immediate, I sort of anticipate, will be focused on safety and safety-related enhancements, potential equipment requirements, and then risk management and minimizing liabilities to the best of our ability. And then the short and long, or the maybe should say medium to long term, would inform our work planning within the protective services team. And that's really the end of the project. And I anticipate the project, I mentioned this in the first slide, to take about 6 months. And that's it in a wrap. And I'm here to answer any questions that may be in the group.
Yeah, any questions from anybody? Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, just thanks very much. That's very clearly laid out. I like that. But the Fire Services review of Britannia Beach, where was it? Narrabordie, Raylor, Zalath, Gun Lake, Birken. I wonder about the Upper Squamish Valley.
Yeah, so they, Ashley Creek, and we have a lot of societies and associations that do valuable work throughout the SLRD. We needed to compartmentalize this project into a scope that was tenable within sort of a time frame within this year. So that's 6 months sort of time frame. And what we learned there will inform our relationships with the Ashley Creeks and folks throughout the other areas.
Okay.
So there's going to be a ton of tuition from the project that then we can bring to chat with the folks there and some of the others like the Texas Creeks and.
I'm not sure what the new rules are when you have a group like that. And I'm not sure about my colleagues and what they have in their areas, but so I'm just speaking about that one. You know, we've put money into it in the past, quite recently actually. I had a grant for doing something. So I just wonder what our relationship is, because we are providing financial support, and what responsibilities we have and what they have towards us in terms of reporting and so on. So, but it sounds like we've got that one in hand. So.
Yeah, I think what we learn in terms of evaluating the regulation and legislation and how it applies to the AHJ, and there's some other pieces in terms of delegation of authority and enabling groups and societies to conduct fire services work or fire protection. Diving into that stuff will then help inform how we should have those conversations and structure that partnership.
Okay.
So there's work to do there, but yeah, we can I'd like to get past that for the initial 6 months, and then we can start the solution
Good.
with working with those folks.
We're not forgotten. That's all.
So,
Thank you, Chair Mac. Thank you for the report. I must say, I was so delighted when I finally got to it last evening and saw it was 11 pages. I appreciate you being succinct and the layout is perfectly clear. I feel like I understand where you're going and what you're thinking about, and it makes sense. Just along the lines of what Director Rainbow just said, I thought, well, where's my Texas Creek? And I've got Pavilion, I've got Yalicum, but this makes sense. You'll get to them once you've established this work. So thank you.
Director.
you want to add something?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just on that, on the comments that were made, I'm sure you're thinking of this, but from a communications perspective to those smaller community entities, if this isn't part of the plan, it might be good to let them know as this goes out that you are part of this broader group. We are going to conduct this audit. You're in phase 2. I'm just making up language, but I think just something to reassure them at the outset that they haven't been forgotten, but we're deliberately starting this way. Might be helpful.
So,
Thank you. Yeah, very similar. The one sentence that we have there, which is we can better understand our obligations as the authority having jurisdiction. So that's one of the keys, because currently with our two services that we have that are funded through a tax requisition. I thought that we had no jurisdiction over them, so that whole concept of learning about it and seeing where they stand, right? So with, as the other two directors have stated, we also have, I funded Marshall Lake, which is a committee under the BRVCA, and you know, I'm working with the Goldbridge group. They actually have fire hydrants, but they're not a legal organization yet, so I'm working with them so that they can become one also. So that's another community that that needs to get looked at. And Tarleton Lake, they're probably going to come after me for some money. They have a little tiny little fire group there also. Gun Creek is very similar. They've actually got a fire trailer. So every one of our communities is really working at and wants. If you read the comments in the Area A OCP community workbook, lots of comments on wildfire. It's critical, and you know, we're working with Fire Smart, we're working with fuel mitigation, and all these. Every one of our communities there is interested in this whole fire protection.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a part of the project too is finding those opportunities to work as a unit, collaborate effectively regionally. And I mentioned sort of the mixed model. I know like Braylor's an example is functioning under a financial contribution agreement. And within the agreements themselves, it does state that Braylorn is the like delegated authority as having jurisdiction. But I see that there's other ties and interrelationships that I'd like to explore to see how to potentially better structure the language in our policies to protect everybody from liability and risk as well for the members and the community. And I do have, and we have a lot of bright ideas about, you know, solutions going forward and things that will be great for the greater good of the fire service. I continually sort of reel myself back and check myself to not solution yet. So I really want to sort of get that snapshot to see what are the realities on the ground, and then the provincial sort of framework that is set for us, and then us as local government, how all those pieces work before I sort of build bridges too far or get ahead of myself with work plans.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you. Just, so in Area B, as you know, we've got Fraser Basin Council doing a little bit of a round table. And I think you're probably participating in some of that at the end of the month. And it's just getting the different people continuing to communicate. I mean, after McKay, we're pretty sensitized to how we could do better in the future. But previously, I had been setting aside some money for prescriptions on the land base for sort of huge area kind of fire smarting. And I think I don't have to do that anymore. That's taken, like, is that, we're getting those funds from some, are you taking the lead on that program?
That's inside
for
the team
SLS?
CRI. Mark, did you want to speak to that or?
Yeah, so if it's on Crown land,
Yes.
then we are advocating to the Ministry of Forests, and we've had some success in our forming a very strong partnership with them to address that. And then through the CRI funding, which we are going for the 2023 grant now, that will be included as part of that.
Okay. Okay.
And we're just working on the grant application now, which will be coming in April or May. So that will give you a better idea of what is included in that.
Thank you. I think you've told me that before. It just sometimes takes me a while to really get on to, this is sort of changing, because that is like in B, that there's nothing more important than protecting the landscape, and we've really suffered from fires. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I'd say is because we have such a diverse amount of fire services from Britannia, Garibaldi, which are pretty well established, obviously. Then you go here to Birken or the Upper Meadows, and then you go further out. We go from Tony's, up the Squamish Valley there. So we go from very well-trained, equipped departments to very minimally trained and equipped departments are in the beginning working stages, whatever, but I think it's gonna be not a challenge for you, but something you'll always have to keep in the back of your mind is those folks that are in that situation are just as important as the Britannia's, Garibaldi's, whatever, right? And I think it's very important what you said is they have to be always aware that they're being thought of in the scheme of things as we move forward. Because you know as well as I that trying to maintain a volunteer fire department, even a paid on call department, is a challenge with jobs and moving and the cost of living and all that stuff. So, we have to make it as appealing as possible for those folks to put the time and effort into protecting their communities. And I think it's our responsibility to make sure that that you have the funding to be able to do that. And that's our job. So, and if you can come up with any more funding, Mark, you go right ahead. I mean, get them writing checks, do whatever you need to do. But I guess one last thing I'll throw in, and this is just with the fire commissioner's office, I think it's going to be incumbent upon yourself to always make them aware that every fire department is not, the city of Richmond or city of Vancouver or Squamish or Whistler or whatever. There's all these little groups of folks out there that have their fire trailer and stuff, and they're doing the best they can for their areas. Because I know when I sat on that fire service working group, I kept bringing that up because I kept getting the impression that, we want everybody out there that's in the fire service to be the same as the guys in the city. Well, we want them to be trained and have the equipment to be safe and sound and do their job to the best of their ability. But they're never going to be the city of Vancouver or whatever, right? So just have to, that's your job to make sure those folks in Victoria understand that.
Yeah, I appreciate that as well. And you can see that this audit process per the Office of the Fire Commissioner is focused on structure and structured firefighting for sure.
Yeah.
And I think we do have an opportunity to clarify the language and clarify the roles of responsibility and the scope and compartmentalize it in such a way where it's easier for them to manage.
Yeah.
But it satiates their need and desire to support the community, and it matches what the community's needs are. And typically that's wildland urban interface protection and wildfire, working with interoperability with the wildfire service, and those kind of things. And then I do have ideas in and around so that regional information management and connectivity, and I have some ideas to leverage platforms so that everybody can discuss and talk. And if there is training coming up conducted by the wildfire service or the village of Pemberton related to setting up an SPU or just wildland firefighting, that everybody has the opportunity to put their hands up. And it's a great opportunity not only to increase your competency skill-wise, but then to build that connectivity throughout the region. And I think those things provide opportunity and then also contribute to recruitment and retention over time, and it creates buzz. So I do have ideas in and around that. Stay tuned for that in about 6 months' time.
Hey, just when you mentioned the SPU
What does
unit,
SPU stand for?
structured protection
Yeah,
unit. So it's when the guy shows up with the big weight trailer and they put sprinklers all over your house. So would that be something that we as a regional district, well, the 4 area directors would consider putting money forward to put one of those units together? And I know you can put them together in stages, right? So if we were to do that and have that unit so that it was dedicated to the areas, it wasn't rented out to the province. Because I know that's what all the other departments that have them do. They rent it out the province, they make money with it. But once it's gone and it's needed at home, there's an issue, right? Whether it's time delay or whatever. But do you think that that would be a worthwhile investment for us to think about?
Absolutely, and there's a program in place, and maybe I'll let Mark top up on it. Through the CRI program is MODE is spearheading the acquisition of a type 2 SPU as a regional level asset. So that's in the works. And it might be fair to top up too, is we had a successful grant application, as you're aware, recently, with board's approval to manage the funding is through the CEPF funding stream through the UBCM. Lots of acronyms.
Yeah.
Wow. And, so we are ramping up with respect to having structure protection units. And I was working to put training together for that. But in discussions with the wildfire services, they said, wait till you have the gear. And there is a ton of supply chain issues there yet. But absolutely, there's opportunity and there is plans underway. And MODE is focusing on the acquisition of a type 2 through the CRI Fire Smart program.
Now, there is a company in Alberta that builds these units. So you can buy like a level 1, 2, 3 unit. You know, maybe for supply chain issues, you know, when we do go that way, contact them and just say, are you guys, what's your turnaround? If we ordered one tomorrow, how long does it take to get it compared to what we're dealing with over here, right? But anyways, yeah, there's stuff out there. But I personally, when I was the fire chief here, we had some big fires up the valley, lots of fly ash floating around. And I went to Home Depot and bought a whole whack of sprinkler units. And we would go and put them on top of the barns and, just use the ladder truck, build a frame, mount them on the barns and hook into their water systems. And it worked out really good. And we actually probably had enough equipment. Now Burnaby had theirs up and one other outfit, they were further up the valley. But all the stuff that we bought, I think I'd be hard pressed to say we spent over $3,000 for it, and it all worked extremely well. We never had an issue we had fly ash landing on all those buildings, but we had enough water running off them to save them or whatever. So yeah, there's other ways of doing it. But if we have to meet certain standards of that unit, maybe that's something to think about. As I'm saying that, I'm thinking, well, if we're not going to rent it out, maybe we can build it to our standards because it's going to be used within our regional district, right?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, that is an exact opportunity we have because recently the Wildfire Service published their new criteria for structure protection units, and the equipment they expect is the gold medal standard.
Yeah.
And I suspect that they purchase a big percentage of the gear that's available in the province, but we can go a level down and kind of go bronze silver level.
Yeah.
I'm going to explore that and see if that'll help expedite. But we can absolutely do that. And there isn't an intention that our SPUs would be donated or leased out to the Wildfire Service during a fire of note. It's just going to be a regional level asset that we have. But I will explore those conversations further and check into the equipment availability.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sal.
Gun Lake Fire a few years back had the office of the fire commissioner come and do a free training session. And after that session, the Gun Lake Fire proceeded to buy a 4-stroke pump with large tank. So they got rid of a little tank and put a big tank on it, like a 5-gallon tank. And it was high pressure, high volume. So the pump itself, it's a big pump, you don't carry it around. And with hoses, a 2-inch hose, 1.5-inch hose, intake, 1-inch hose, the whole, it was a kit. You bought $1,800. And we have a number of those around the lake, including myself. And, you know, we've depending on where you are, where you're going to get your water from in rural areas, right? So you look at Marshall Lake, Tyalton Lake, Gun Lake, we've all got water. Because we're all the properties are on the lake, basically. So you really have to look at when you're going to do structural protection, where you're going to get your water from. And because these kits, they all come with a pump that come in these units. So, but you don't have to go with that Mark III pump. You know, there's other options out there.
Thank you, Director. Yeah, apparently the Honda is a good alternative. And I think as a part of the fire service review too, is kind of getting a sense of the inventory that we have across the region to see where we're at, to determine any disparities in the gear. But also the water supply piece, it makes me think of it's the fire underwriter survey, and if there's desire to increase the scores there, water supply mapping is a key piece. That might be a recommendation that's flushed out through the audit process. But I appreciate your feedback on that, and I'll keep that in mind.
So last year, think about that. So what we did in Area C, we bought 5 500-gallon trailers, tandem axle trailers, plastic tank on it. I don't know if you've seen any. They're out there.
I've seen them. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got one at the Meadows, Birken, let's see, Global Lake Estates, and the Birkenhead Lake Estates. So there's 5 of them out there anyways. But with that, they've got 1.5 inches on it. It's got a pump assembly. You can run 2 pre-connects off it, or you can go back, dial down to Econoline. Also supplied them all with 5-gallon pails of foam. And my idea was, if you're going out, just dump the foam into the, dump a pail of foam into the 500 gallons of water. It's not the best foam system, but it definitely helps, makes wet water, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I think those things are really invaluable, to tell you the truth. They move around really easy to stow them with a pickup truck, 3/4 ton, 1 ton, whatever. Put a trailer hitch on the fire truck, whatever. But because water is critical, obviously. But yeah, I think that doing the inventory is a really great idea. But I know the departments, even like say Burke and the Meadows, they've all got equipment lists. I know they have, because that's one of the things you need to do. But the other place was Ponderosa on the Highline Road. So Ponderosa, Strata subdivision, and then right next to that is McGillivray. McGillivray is pretty much only boat access, but Area C money has supplied them with pumps and fire equipment too. A guy, Mike Morley, you might want to write that down. He's the fire marshal for that area with forestry, but they've done in McGillivray, I say they should be the poster child for fire smarting. They've done an amazing job. They do prescribed burns every year. They slash and pile and burn and do a wonderful job. So you guys might want to connect with them and just go up and have a look at their property. It's a fairly large sized property right off the Highline Road. I'm sure he'd be really interested in giving you a tour to show what they've done. And it's ongoing. I know they've got more work planned for this year's.
Thank you. Just that I've spoken to Mike Morley to get some advice for my little groups, and I was trying to kind of copy some of the things that Director Mack's done, and I was looking at those $20,000 12 and thinking they might be good for the three groups, but I have a huge kind of knowledge gap here. So if you if there's recommendations for things when you get to that point, I would be so pleased to help those groups in the best way. But I'd be glad for another opinion, that's for sure. Yeah.
I'm here to help. So yeah.
When you get there.
Yep.
Yeah, and if I can just add, I would just say that I think with the investment in Fire Smart, having some long-term thinking related to our wildfire risk reduction, and then obviously with our regional fire chief, I think we have a really strong opportunity because there's fire services, then there's a kind of wildfire risk reduction piece, and I think there's going forward we have some real strength on this team to start kind of moving into these more forwards. Sport.
Okay, Paul. Tony, go ahead.
That's one of the things, Rob. When we went out and had a look at the outfit at up at Squamish, and Leslie showed us around, I've since sort of heard that our chief came out to look at it. They were impressed. They really appreciated the fact that you took the interest. I don't think I'd passed that on to you before, but I just remembered it. So there you go. And I think that sort of fits in with Craig's suggestion about keeping the little groups informed about where they sit in the whole plan. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to the boots on the ground, getting out there and doing that road trip throughout the region and establishing and building partnerships and relationships. And I enjoy that part as well. So I appreciate that feedback. Thank you for that. And yeah.
So we just need a motion to receive. Move seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair.
Really appreciate it.
just thinking,
You too, Mark.
about those SPUs, we could rent them to Whistler and Squamish and pay for them in no time. Well, two can play at that game, you know.
And hooray for that nomination for Maud. I don't know if it was appropriate to say that or not, but she knows and yeah, it's good work.
Okay, we're off now to directors' reports. 8.1. So Suzanne, is she coming in or? No? Okay, I think we're all good.
Yeah.
Okay, 8.1 electoral area tax services funding for 2023 budget. Sounds all good with all those that's?
Yes, I am. Can we do them all at once?
Okay,
Okay, I move all of that.
okay, I'll second it. And I'll call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. And now we'll go to,
8.2, look at that.
well,
So that includes rescinding the other that's and everything. That's okay. Perfect. Crispin wrote these, didn't you?
8.2 is electoral area C. And I'm in favor of all of these that's.
I will second that. That.
And I will call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you. 8.3, Anderson Lake portable washrooms, shall we say. Yes, I'm definitely in favor of topping that up, and I'll move that.
Can I ask a question before you call the question? When you got your portable toilets, what are they? Those like blue biffy things that?
Yeah, the
Porta potties.
So
porta potties. So we have two of them at the Anderson Lake docks. we put a pad there and, Lloyd E. Williams from the reserve, he supplies them. Cleans them out once a week and sanitizes them and, yeah.
I just wondered how much they cost you.
You check with Allison.
Yeah. And
Yeah, she looks after that project.
my suggestion was going to be, if there, I know when we looked at the cost of blue, if it's down at Turner Creek, didn't take long to get to an amount of money that justified putting in those,
Yeah, the only problem is, Tony, is that park is on top of a native grave site. So it's really
okay,
like there's an old pit toilet there and we keep it clean and pumped out and all that. But to me, it's disgusting, but that's why we have these off to the side. So we don't want to go in there and ruffle any feathers, shall we say, by digging holes or, no, so this works out just fine.
if you still got a pit toilet that's working,
Oh, yeah.
get rid of it. Put one of these things in instead, because they sit on this, you put a
Yeah, I know exactly
gravel
what you're
pad.
saying, yeah.
There's no pit, there's no cleaning, no pumping out or anything, because there's no liquid to pump out.
Yeah, it's funny, but like Nequatqua, they're sort of, they'll live with what's there, but they don't want any disturbance of any kind, right? We've been through it with them on more than one occasion with more than one administrator, more than one chief, so we just leave it alone. Because they're liable to go down there and say, you know what, folks, we don't even want you in this park anymore. And the park is actually, it's actually BC rail land. And we've tried to convince them to buy it, and they've tried to buy it, but BC Rail doesn't, they want to sell it, but they don't want to sell it. They'd actually like to sell it to a developer because it's right on the lake. So anyways, it's kind of at a standstill, shall we say. But anyways, I'll move this.
Yep.
Seconded, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Correspondence for action 9.1. Request.
I'll have to declare a conflict of interest.
Okay,
As my daughter is an employee of the BRBCA and my wife is a director on the board.
yes. So on Sal's behalf, I will move this. Vivian's going to second it.
I'd be glad to.
Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried.
That's the one, you're okay for the next one, are you?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Request for funding, Gold Bridge Community Club Seniors Lunch Program.
Yeah, I'd like that, but first I'd like to talk about it. It's an excellent program, and the Goldbridge Community Club is kind of taking it over now. Originally, it was started by the BRVCA, but now it's the Goldbridge Community Club. They've got a whole bunch of new directors, and they're being really proactive. So kudos on them. So yes, I'll move that.
Okay. Vivian's going to second it. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. 9.3, request for funding Lillooet Secondary School bursaries. Vivian.
yes, okay, this is on page 132. I think you're just looking at an email from Kim Malenko, but I've been contributing to this fund every year. I'd like to contribute $5,000 towards bursaries for students graduating from Lillooet Secondary School. I know I said something else earlier to you, but 5,000 is what we're landed on. For Lillooet Secondary School graduates in 2023 who are carrying on with post-secondary studies. From select funds, thank you. I knew I was
Very
forgetting
good,
something.
okay. Moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. 9.4, request for funding.
Oh, I just had a.
Oh, go ahead.
Just one, did you just give the school the money and just leave it to them?
I absolutely leave it to them. They have a committee of very knowledgeable teachers, parents who know where all the students are at. And I'm really happy to not wade into making any of those decisions, so. I just think it's a really good use of select funds, but I don't have to, yeah,
Support it.
you know, anyone who's going in to study bats, for example, or, no.
Yeah.
Okay, 9.4.
Okay.
Request for funding, Lillooet Learning Community Society decolonization workshop.
Exactly. And I'd like to recommend $2,000 towards the cost of hosting the decolonization workshop. And it's on April 15th, 2023 as part of the community conversations around truth and reconciliation. And so I'll make that motion
From select.
from select funds.
Seconded.
Seconded.
Okay, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried.
And I've passed the information on to the SLRD. Okay, good.
Okay, 9.5, request for funding, Lillooet and District Chamber of Commerce, Area B support.
A motion to support the Lillooet and District Chamber of Commerce for $2,000 towards the Chamber's work, which in 2023 will focus on tourism advocacy and relationship building, with particular focus on the agricultural industry. From select funds.
Okay, moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. 9.
With this, when Claire Doomer became aware of this request motion, she kindly sent me a message talking about some work that staff are doing around mapping and agriculture in the region. And so I want to make sure that the chamber connects with her. So I don't think we're sending letters with our checks anymore, but I will make sure to let the chamber know to make that connection so that we're not duplicating work or overlapping, or that it's complementary.
Yeah, and my understanding is we're about to update the data that they've asked for as part of the work, so it might make sense to wait until the.
And that's completely
data's in
fine.
place, so if you want to put them in touch, it's their decision, obviously, but. Yeah.
And I really like what they're trying to do. The chamber's trying to create some brochures for people looking to move or invest in Lillooet. Here's kind of a snapshot of agriculture, and here's a snapshot of what's happening with mining and so forth. They're starting with agriculture, which suits me to the ground. But yes, that updated information is what they should be working with. So I'll make sure that they get that message, and thank you.
Okay. 9.6, request for funding, Lillooet Memorial Curling Club facility expenses. Vivian.
So a request to fund the Lillooet Memorial Curling Club for $3,000 from Electoral Area B Select Funds as a one-time contribution towards immediate time-sensitive facility expenses as the organization continues its fundraising events and works towards reopening its facility in the coming year. That's my motion.
Okay, moved, seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. 9.7, request for funding, Lillooet Regional Invasive Species Society outreach program activities. Vivian.
As you all know, we're going to increase the taxes or the service contribution for invasive species, both for sea to sky and Elris in the future, but it won't be this year. There's a critical year for Elris this year, so I'm requesting or resolving $10,000 towards the cost of hiring a staff member or consultant to engage in key outreach program activities between April and September 2023 for Lillooet Regional Invasive Species Society from Area B Hilt, please. So I believe that has to go down to the
That's the
board.
board, isn't it?
10,000, you said?
Yes, please. Which is just slightly over what I would expect they'll be receiving as an increase in future years from the tax service, but this will cover them. Elris is doing some fantastic stuff right now, and the project with the McKay and some of the restoration work, and they've pulled in some university people, and they're working on consultation with the various First Nations, and it's pretty exciting So this money is needed and it'll be put to good use.
Okay, so moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. 9.8, request for funding, Lillooet Friendship Center Society Owl Bus 2023.
Yes, the Lillooet Friendship Center Society. Motion to fund them for $2,000 towards the cost of operating the Owl Bus community transportation service for clients and vulnerable people, in Lillooet and area communities. Move that.
Okay, seconded.
From select funds area B. Yes, thanks.
Okay, moved and seconded, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. 9.9, request for funding Burken Recreation and Cultural Society Easter event. And this is for their Easter egg hunt. And I want to put $1,000 from Area C select funds towards that. I'll move that, seconded. So moved and seconded, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. 9.10, request for funding Lillooet Nation Annual Rodeo Event. So the amount I want to put forward for this is $4,000 from Area C select funds. And I will move that.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm kind of actually being serious. I know sometimes I'm not, but I am now. Are there animals injured or hurt in that rodeo?
No,
Is it a? Because I remember
this rodeo's been going on for, I don't know, 50, 70 years.
I know, but some of them are being.
Well, these people are like, they're very professional. This rodeo is on the Native Rodeo Tour. I mean, I think it's very well done, and the lady that kind of spearheads this thing, Maxine Joseph Bruce. I just think she's a first-class individual. So, and she runs a tight ship. So that would be my answer to that.
I won't oppose it, but
Very good,
not
thank you.
entirely comfortable.
Moved and seconded, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Now we have
Question well.
9.111.
Yes.
9.1, it was.
I gotta go back.
So that was related to the Just Do It letter. And I think I have to request that the report from Just Do It Sports, Lillooet area, go as correspondence to the board agenda later in March. But that's my motion. That's
Okay.
good.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Number 10, decision on late business.
So that was the thing that I brought up in close that.
Oh, okay.
Said should be in open.
I thought, but that's 11. Late business.
This is the decision.
Yeah, we have to make.
Oh, so this is
You need
it.
2/3.
Vote.
Okay, so first we vote to allow that to happen.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll move it, you second it.
right.
Okay,
We need another vote.
Yeah.
We need.
Yeah,
Okay,
move to second and call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried.
right.
Okay, now we're off to 11, late business. Oh, yeah.
No, I don't want to say it all again, but when I first introduced that, my main motivation was putting us in a position where we can recruit good candidates at the next election.
Yeah.
So to do that, I believe that we need to increase the stipend that is paid to electoral area directors. We look around the table here, we're all retired, we all have a pension, we're all able to do it because of that. There are very capable people out there who are not at our age, haven't reached retirement yet, qualified, capable, would do a good job of this, but can't afford to do it.
Yeah.
So that's the motivation. I would like to see us move the stipend up from its current position, move it up by $20,000 by the end of this term. And suggests that we do that in 4 steps so that,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, because I actually remember called you and suggested we do it in stages, because to do it in one increment. And the other thing, it was suggested by the chair, we wait till the last year. I don't think that's a good idea at all. So if we do it in stages, as you said, we can put it out there to interested parties. Because I'm in the same position. You know, I'm looking for somebody, and I'd like to see somebody, 40 years old or 30 or whatever. But there has to be an incentive to do it. And let's face it, the cost of living here is, well, it's astronomical, but anyways.
yeah, so
But if we do it at 5,000 increments per year, we can show that we're building towards that number, and we're not doing it flagrantly in one lump sum or whatever. So I totally agree with you.
Is it, I just, logistical question that seems. Can we make adjustments to the budget at this point in time? Like that
For this year.
for this year? I don't think
well,
so.
the budget is not approved yet.
No.
So the, it's those, not the rates are set by bylaw, so there'd have to be a bylaw, remuneration bylaw change. And so that wouldn't happen before the budgets are approved in March. If this was the direction of the board.
If
Okay.
the
If we
board
decide
decides.
to, if we
do it.
decide to go in this direction, we could note that in the budget. And then the bylaw process could proceed. And then there'd be some money available once it was done. I don't see it left until we get to the end of the term and we're scratching around and.
No, because what may very well happen is the other 7 folks could very well say, no, it's all good the way it is. And then the term is over and we're back to the same position we are right now. And, it's going to be a challenge to get people to participate.
You only have to look around the board table. The rest of the directors around the board table are the same age as my kids. They've not got old retired people running the councils. They're young people. They're in the prime of their careers or lifespan. And how can they do that? Well, because it's a larger stipend. They can afford to do it.
Through the chair, I just, so where we are with the budget, as you know, is it's not going to be complete in time for the board meeting this month.
Right.
Which speaks to where it's at process-wise. There's a 2-week requirement for the budget to be posted for the public to be able to view it. If this needs a bylaw amendment or a change to go to the board, which then would have to be made available to the public, I would ask that the committee decide whatever it wants to decide, but direct us to look at whether or not it's feasible inside this budget cycle.
And if not feasible in this budget cycle, can we be perfectly content with having this go into place the following year?
Then we do it in 3 stages.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Do it in 10, 5, 5.
we're up against it right now to get this.
So let's take that pressure off by just saying within the next.
So I've got a question, Kristen. So we could modify the bylaw to state that these increases will take place in these 3 years. Because that's what we want to be able to share. So that people know that the increases are going to be for 3 years. At the end of 3 years, this is what it's going to be, plus the CPI or whatever process we have. We don't change the bylaw just for 1 year, right? We want to change it for those 3 years.
So I think what we're saying is increase it by X amount this year, another X amount in next year, another X amount the next year.
Yeah, 3 years.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We probably have to work some wording into the bylaw to address that.
Okay.
Yeah, like we could definitely take care of that in the bylaw probably.
So what you would say is, at the end of this term, we want the EAD director's stipend or whatever you want to call it, to be increased by $20,000. So it would go, if we can't do it 5 this year, then the next year we do 10 and then do 5 and 5. There's your 20 when we're finished.
So starting in 2027. So you said after this term?
No. In
The-
2024, it would go up $10,000. 2025, it goes up 5,000. 2026, it goes up 5,000. So at the end of the term, it's gone up by $20,000 when we leave, right? Because what we were saying originally was you do five in each year. So 5 times 4 is 20. That gives you that increase at the end of this term.
So as far as process goes, this would have to go to the board. So it would be a director report that we would like the bylaw changed. Correct?
Okay,
It's,
why don't I put something together for April?
it's, I believe it's already part of the compensation review, this portion, director's remuneration has been added to that. So the last time the board talked about it was that there was gonna be a review of director compensation in other regional districts comparable to ours.
Yeah.
As just some information. I
I
think that's how we left it.
We maybe did, but nobody around the board can answer the question why. Why do we need to do that? And the answer is all because we always do it. No?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if we want it to increase by what we're proposing, then that's the number that you go forward. We shouldn't be out looking at, all these different regions, because like you say, what if it comes back and we're at the high end supposedly? Well, obviously then it's not going to go forward. And 4 years from now, we'll be in the same boat. I mean, I know when I talk to people, I have said, some people that I would really like to see put their names forward, one of them at least. And right now, they think I'm crazy for doing what I'm doing for the finances, but also for all the, stuff you take. But I mean, that's all part and parcel of the job or whatever you want to call it, position, right? If you can't deal with that, then you shouldn't be here anyways. So.
Yeah, I really don't care what other regional districts are doing. I'm looking at making a statement here, making a statement in this region and making a statement provincially. Because, you go to UBCM and then you go to an EAD meeting and it's like walking into the geriatric ward.
Yeah.
It really is. Well, it is, so it's not just us, it's around the province. No.
That's true for a lot of organizations.
What's going on?
You're making me feel. Admiring you.
We need to insert breaks.
Yeah.
We actually had a conversation with a new director that board is on Area B. And we had that little conversation and we brought this up and the two of them there said, well, you still need to have that knowledge from the older people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying,
Balance would be nice.
I'm not
yeah.
saying you don't need old people.
Yeah.
The scales here.
I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think I had something that I could contribute, I would have packed up a long time ago. But as I said, I look around the board table and they're all younger than my kid.
Yeah.
It's and that's okay as well. But sometimes I wonder whether they have had enough experience. But that's I also wish that the sort of the First Nations approach to elders, which they don't seem to have, but anyway, that's by the way.
So,
Okay, so-
we could do a director report.
Tony just said he's gonna put something
I'll put
together.
something together for April. And with a sort of request that it be recommended to the board to get going on some kind of get going on the new bylaw, so we could have something in place for next year's budget. Because I can see where we're at for this year,
Yeah.
so. But I brought
And
this up,
I'm-
but I brought this up before the end of the term.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to get to where we are now, where it's, oh, well, we put it forward, defer it. You know, and I don't want to see us deferring it again, and like I say, getting to where you said, get to the end of the year and then, oh, 20,000 in 1 year, that's way too much.
Well, and a 66% increase is a pretty serious chunk. I mean, this is quite a.
All I'm doing is saying, here's what the job is. And if you want someone to do that job and pay what we're paying now, then you're restricting your choices. If you want to expand your choices, you've got to pay more for the job. Simple as that. I mean, if the board wants to sit there and say, no, we're not interested in young, but we just want retired people that are on pensions. Okay, well, that's all you're going to get, though.
Or, what, you know, my thing to them was expand your boundaries. We don't even have to be here.
Yeah. Well, that's
I'll
that's fine.
no, that's true.
I should be saying that to Whistler next time they're whinging about Wedgwoods. Expand your boundaries.
Well, yeah, I've said that before a long time ago. With this fire service thing, right? But no, they don't help us. But anyways, okay, so we have a plan here now then. Do we need a motion to instruct Director Rainbow to? No, okay.
Okay,
Well, and is that necessary? This is already as part of the compensation. This is already being conveyed to the group that's gonna do the compensation review, right?
Well,
no, but all that,
no,
See how it all-
not necessarily.
Yeah, through the chair, I would say that that's not necessarily the nature of the problem that we would have gone and tried to solve. So I think this is something distinct.
Okay,
And I
yeah,
think based on what I've heard, that the way you've described dealing with it is more appropriate than what we would have done, and we'll just adjust our compensation review if required, based on the
To
direction.
leave out the directors.
If the board directs that, they may want a general review
Yeah,
as part of that still, but it was not going to get at, which is why we needed to sit down with you. But you have a way forward here that I think works
okay.
better than what we would be.
One last comment.
Yeah.
I'd rather see 5, 5 and 10 than last year, just for perception purposes. It'll be in the bylaw, so we can share that bylaw. So everybody knows that the total is 20,000. But I'd rather see 5, 5 and 10.
yeah, you know, and I disagree with that, Sal, just because it's gonna come into effect at the beginning of our last year. I would rather it come in at 5, do the 10 next year, 10, 5 and 5, not do 10 in the last year, and then have people say, oh, look, those guys just gave themselves a bonus going out the door. And you damn well know that's what they're gonna say. So I would say go 10, 5, 5. And that's just, you know, makes it more realistic, I think.
Either way, it's 20,000 over.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. I won't be here in April. Leslie is definitely coming in my place, and I'll make sure that this report is in before I go. Before I leave.
I think it's the least you could do before you flit off Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah, I know, listen, it's not gonna be no holiday. I have my 2 grandsons there.
Oh.
Okay, we're all good with that. Late business done. Director's notice of motion.
So motion to receive.
Oh, motion to receive. Move, seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you. Director's notice of motion, none. And Director Rainbow.
May I move the gentleman, please?
Very good, thank you. Well done.
Oh, is it 2 o'clock?
Yep.